All right, coming to you from the land of the Hellion. This is the Hellion from the Hellion Rocks, and I'm going to be doing a new series of pieces actually, on what makes music great. And part of that is the people that are actually behind the boards, mixing, mastering, recording. And we have got Sterling Winfield on this right now. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, what's happening?
Well, like you said, today's music world, everybody's bemoaning everything. Everybody's pronouncing the death of the music world and that there's not a chance of coming back. And I personally am of the opinion that we can bring it back, but we've got to get back to the days that we were in the past with the right people doing the right things.
I can agree with a lot of that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there's some shenanigans going on, but I don't think that there ever really hasn't been in this crazy business, you know?
Exactly. But I'm of the opinion that, a great song that sticks in your head is not only the actual writing and the playing of the song, it's how it was laid down on the track, which is what makes it remembered for. A lot of people don't get to go to see a lot of live shows, and it was always been that way. So there was always that iconic recording, which to me was an alchemy of, blending of everything, all the parts involved. And that takes a really good sound in.
I can totally get on board with that. That is, what a lot of people don't understand, and this is what I tell bands when I go to work with them in the studio is, people are always asking me, how do you get this sound? What are you going to do to get my sound? And I got to be honest with them. I say, look, man, I'm going to stick a microphone on your guitar rig. There's nothing special I'm going to do. There's no trickery. There's no voodoo or black magic involved. I'm going to stick a mic on you. And what you sound like is going to come through. And I tell them that good sounds for anything starts with the source. And I don't mean the instrument. I don't mean the cabinet. I mean the player. There is an intangible thing that happens when an individual plays an instrument. And if they are truly pouring out their soul and they're letting their heart do the talking and not, some kind of technical crapola, or they're concentrating on a certain part, then a sound is going to happen. And if you get a group of those dudes in a room and they're all synced up, there is a certain sound that happens when certain bands play. It is an alchemy. Just like you said, that's a great word. I like that.
Nice. And that's a true statement. I think that, you and I have grown up listening to the iconic songs. I'm not going to go through, there's so many that are out there.
Way too many
prior to.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like you just said. When somebody is making music for the right reasons, and that's an art form, it's expressing their feelings, what's going on in their lives, and they have the talent to do so, and they're not making it to make that, and they're not writing it just to make that next hit single. Something happens there. But at the same time, they're the ones making the music, and with the advent of technology these days, everybody and their grandma thinks that they can make a hit record themselves. And I think I'm against that. I think that people have their parts, and again, using that alchemy word, certain elements need to come together to make that iconic recording.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Listen, I'm not against people making music. I would love for everybody and their grandma to make music. It's finally affordable, I think that's a good thing. It's kind of cost us some of my favorite studios where some of those iconic tracks were recorded, but that wasn't the only thing that shut the doors on those studios. Let's face it, bad management is bad management no matter where you're at. There can be a McDonald's right across the street from another McDonald's that's not doing so hot because the manager's an asshole, so
right.
It has to do with the people. It's not the gear. It's not the technology. It's the people. And I still think there's some timeless music out there. I still know there's some timeless music out there. I know there's some timeless music locked up in somebody that hadn't gotten out yet. Are we seeing it as much as we used to? No, it was more controlled and more developed back in the day. I think that producers have, in the traditional sense of the word, music producer, have kind of gone by the wayside. That's kind of gone away, and there's no, I kind of look at the producers of yesteryear as kind of like a lightning rod. They're there to kind of capture that energy and focus it. And I think that's kind of gone by the wayside. And I'm even speaking about myself when I say that. I'm not Quincy Jones or anybody like that by any stretch. I'm not musically educated. But hey, neither is Rick Rubin, and he seems to have that power. It has to do with just being able to get the best out of people, which is something that I enjoy trying to do. It doesn't always work, but there's just a lot of elements that aren't around anymore. And you're right. Everybody with a credit card that has access to the internet thinks they can record music now, and that's just not so. Hey, the cream will always rise to the top. I
Sure.
think it's still out there. I work with bands. I work with so many bands. I like to call them the best bands in the world that no one's ever heard of. And these dudes they're all underdogs. They got great chops, great talent, great music, great everything, but they've got everything else going against them. They don't look right, or they're too old. The window of opportunity has passed them by, or whatever, but they're still writing great music that will stand up to any of a lot of the timeless stuff that you hear on classic rock radio,
And that's another thorn in my side, is the fact that, since we had the corporate takeover of radio and they've actually pulled control away from the DJs, it's a lot harder for bands like you were just talking about to be heard these days. And I think that forces people into a corner where they're going to give up, and it's unfortunate, that there is that music that's still out there that still needs to be heard, but they've lost that venue.
I think the venue has changed a lot, really, and just because it's going away, I think record labels are going to become a thing of the past within our lifetime. I think radio, as we know it, like terrestrial radio, things like that, that's going to go away. Who wants to hear 10 minutes of commercials and 5 minutes of music? Nobody. That's going to go away. That is going to go away. Nobody listens to that crap. It's stupid. It's ridiculous to think that anybody's going to listen to that. I know that's how they pay their bills, but it's ridiculous. So these things, they're outdated. They're dinosaurs. They're going away. And with these things going away, I think there's a lot of new doors opening, man. I think there's more opportunity out there than ever before. There's more music out there changing hands than ever before in the history of everything. There's more music being recorded than ever before. There's more of everything than ever before. It's information overload. Now, can you focus that? Can you harness that? Can you get that to a particular audience? That's where the old corporate devil comes back into the picture. And you can't, it's almost like you can't have one without the other. You can't have this light of music without the dark despair of the business part of it,
Sure.
And that part's always going to find a way into the other. And I think there's a lot more opportunity out there. At least that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that if you dump a record label and get rid of that ideal that's not the way things are done anymore, and then you move on to, well, let's just get somebody that really knows the internet. Let's get somebody that really knows how to work this engine. And I think that there's more opportunity there than a record label could ever afford anyone anymore, period. It's kind of silly, the whole idea.
Right. That's kind of a great viewpoint, but let me pose a question to you. So we all know Best by Kiss was the B-side of Detroit Rock City. And
Right.
it became the hit it did by a DJ flipping it over and playing that B-side. So
Right.
what is the equation now for a band to get that kind of thing?
We are the new DJs. We are the people that make things go viral. That was the old viral. And it was very, unless you were sitting near that radio at that particular time or whatever, you weren't there, to hear that. And so that's kind of the old viral. It kind of traveled at the speed of sound. Well, now the new viral travels at the speed of light. And it's way bigger. It's way more widespread. And I think we're the new DJs. We're the new program directors. And we get to choose our content. We get to stream what we like and turn off what we don't. I think that's how that's changed. I think there's new ways of doing things that we're just now realizing the pros and cons of.
Wonderful. That's a great attitude to have. I'm glad to see somebody from the industry is not laying down and dying, which is, it led me to go to the internet, which is where my show is seen now, and I have a broader audience, where if I had terrestrial radio, I would not be reaching 170 countries. So I'm kind of working on that.
You would not. And that's my point, is that the opportunities are even more widespread. Now, what comes with that, all the opportunities being more widespread, is that, well, the crackpots, the loons, the robber barons, whatever you want to call them, they're even more widespread now too. So all the shady crap that's left over from the music industry and the record labels and all of that is even more now, and so you got to be really, really on your guard, aware. Just this morning, I just posted this thing not an hour ago. This kid just flipped his wig and went off on me because of this whole silly thing that I posted on the internet on my Facebook page, and he's losing his mind on me and threatening me and stuff, and I'm just like, wow, dude, I don't like your opinion, and that's my freedom of choice here, and so, you gotta take the bad with the good, I guess, but just be safe. Look out for the people that would do harm to you,
Yeah, we all know that. Now, I want to, for people that aren't really familiar with your body of work, I'm speaking with Sterling Winfield here. I'm familiar with your work. I like the results that come out. How did you get involved in the backside of recording, or the backside of rock and roll music?
When you say backside, what are you talking about, like behind the scenes?
Yeah, people don't give a lot of thought to who made the record and how it came to be. Now, how did you get involved in working that side?
Man, I was struggling in junior college, out of high school. I really didn't feel like I was happy or anything. I was making great grades, A's, and just wasn't happy. I wasn't feeling it, I wasn't feeling it going anywhere. And so I sat down and had a little heart to heart with my dad, and I got the music bug from him and my brother. My dad is a musician, songwriter, and nothing really famous or anything, but he did a lot of recording back when I was a kid, and my brother just basically turned me on to rock and roll and some of the heavier stuff when I was a kid, Ted Nugent, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, all the good stuff, and so that's what I got from my brother. And so I sat down and had a heart-to-heart with my dad, and he was like, well, I know you like music, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to do something in the music field. And at this point in time, I was I would have done anything in the music field. If he would have said, well, go intern at a label, I would have done that, and I probably would have ended up on the front side of all of this. But he said, I know you like doing technical things with your amp and your guitar and stuff in there, and have you ever thought about being a recording engineer? And I'd been in enough studios at that point in my life. I knew what was there. I knew what was involved. And it was like an aha moment, a huge one, a real life-defining moment for me. And I couldn't believe that I'd never thought about it. I couldn't believe that I'd never gone, you know what, that looks like a cool job. It never clicked with me until he said it at that moment. And then I went and pursued an education with a local legend recording guy, the late great Phil York, who did a lot of work with Willie Nelson. He did the Red-Headed Stranger album, and he had worked with the Rolling Stones and Robert Duvall and a whole bunch of other folks around here in the Dallas area. And he passed away a couple of years ago, but I did a little course with him, and he got me my first job doing live sound for a local blues band. And then I took that from there and went to the biggest, best studio in town, and here I sit. You know, that was 25 years ago.
Nice. You know, I have to say, my parents, I came from not players, but a real musical house. And my mother taught me at a very young age to listen beyond the music, to listen to the depth and the quality of the recording. And she's gone, but I thank her for that, because she really, really made me appreciate music for much more than the face value of it. So, right. It looks like we both had parents to thank for
that's a very valuable thing that you mentioned there, how it's like a music appreciation class. It's like, a lot of people listen to music, but they don't hear it. A lot of people listen to music, but they don't know why they like it. And not that it has to be explained. It can be a feeling, and I'm okay with that. But a lot of people are just kind of numb to why they like certain things, why they like a hook, why they like a melody, or the way a groove hits them. And it's a cool thing to know. It's a cool thing to listen beyond the surface of something and get into it. Yeah, that's a great thing.
Now, being around that, you've been in the industry for quite a while, and we know it's changed directions, and you've got an actual handle on things, and I'm trying to steer bands
I do
into doing the right thing. I think you do more than than if you had a fresh young band that you felt had every potential in the world ahead of them. What piece of advice would you tell them first off?
Oh God, probably get a lawyer. That's usually what I tell everybody. Get a lawyer. You're going to need it. And I mean, that's just coming from the business side of me, and that's coming from the cautionary side of me, of some of the stuff that I've seen and some of the ways that I've gotten ripped off. You better get a lawyer. You better get somebody that's on your side, that knows the system, or you're doing all this for nothing. If you want to be successful in a business way, then get a lawyer. If all you're doing is just having fun and you don't care who takes all your pie, fine. Jump in both feet. Go for it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I've in the past I've worked real closely with an independent label and done a lot of work with bands, and that's usually my first piece of advice as well to them. So,
and that's just cool. That's sad that it has to be that way, but that's the way it needs to be. And you've got to have somebody on your side, and I would love for it to be the other way around. Like, hey, man, here's how we're doing this, and this is great musically because of this, and I wish I could sit around and talk about music all day. But
so moving forward, I think, again, like I mentioned earlier, people are proclaiming the death of music. I don't think so, man. I hear so many good bands out there, trying to make it, and it's like you said, it's up to us now. I think it's control of everything has come back to where we were when rock and roll first started, when it was, when there really wasn't radio, there really wasn't MTV. It was, hey man, have you heard this band? Check this band out. And like you were saying about the internet, before it was hanging out in a record store, telling people this is what I'm listening to and what are you listening to. Well, now we can do that on a grander scale, and I think that bands should not give up. They should not listen to some big high-profile people saying that the death is dead. They should not take that line down and prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, I mean, look, the music industry, as we know it, as we grew up with it, as we knew it, yes, that's dying. Good riddance.
Sure.
I fucking am so happy to watch the asteroid that is the internet hit that dinosaur and knock it out. I love it. But it's not the only thing that's killing it. And I just read this interview with Gene Simmons, and I think there's a lot of kernels of truth in what he's saying about the fans are killing it, and you're goddamn right they are. They're strangling the life out of it like Lenny of Mice and Men, Come on. They love it, but at the same time, they're killing it. And it's like, okay, how do we prevent that? Well, you can't. There's just going to be spillage. There's going to be breakage. This whole thing with Taylor Swift and whatever, she's not the first person to swing that axe, and everybody needs to get off of that little soapbox. There were people swinging that axe long before she came up and did her little boycott Apple thing or whatever. And then after they said, okay, we'll take your advice and everything, and then they only are paying 2 cents per spin, So it's like, yeah, we won't screw the artist, but just a little bit. It's like, okay, nobody's still winning here. Nobody won anything. There's nothing to win. And so I think that, yes, it used to be a communal thing. It used to be more personal, hanging out in a record store and trading mixtapes with your friends and all of that, yes. And now we can do, wow, you can throw together a whole playlist for somebody and send it to them over the internet at the speed of light, and it's there. So yeah, grander scale for sure, but we've lost a little bit of the sense of community, I think, but the community's bigger. And so it's all these pros and cons trading places, and yeah, I really do believe that the fans are strangling the hell out of this whole thing. They're really out. The record companies are dying. I don't see them being a threat hardly anymore. At this point the balance of power has shifted to the people, and the people are they're putting a damper on things by, doing what they're doing, because once it's out there digitally, it's out there. You cannot take it back. It's done.
That's right.
So, yeah, do we got some shit to learn still? Yes. Very much so, about ourselves and about how to treat fellow human beings, but everything's on a grander scale. Music reaches people quicker than it ever did. You may not be selling a piece of music, but it's out there. It's getting out there.
Now, well, let me ask you this: do you think that? So we like you just said, once it's out there, it's out there. What is your take on the fact that the bands are putting out like minute-to-minute updates on what they're doing in the studio? So you're hearing tracks before they're ready to be heard. They're putting it out, and so they're knowing minute by minute instead of the anticipatory buildup of a brand new record. Everybody really knows what's going on minute to minute. What's your thought on that?
I kind of got mixed thoughts on that. I'm still from the school of let them anticipate. When your CD or your downloads or whatever become available, let it hit them for the first time. Let it melt their fucking faces off. Or let it impact them the way you meant for it to impact them, because if they're there for every second of it, then they're going to get bored. They're going to get bored with it real quick, just like it is in the studio, because once you start taking the mystery out of some of the studio work and some of the things that go into it, and you're updating everybody every day, then by the time it comes out there, I've already heard that. And the attention span in this country has dropped to 0. And so you know, by the time you release it, everybody's already heard it, or they know what it is, or they know what to expect. I loved going and getting my music and unwrapping it and just hearing it for the first time. The first time I ever put on Back in Black, oh my God, it blew me away. The first time I ever put on High and Dry, blew me away. You know, and it's that's what they're destroying by doing that. I think it's a bonehead move on that, but that's just my humble opinion. Now, I do see the value also, on the other hand, in including the fans in the making of, like letting them in the studio with a camera, letting them see where things are done, letting them maybe see a little bit of how things are done. Documentary style type things. That is cool to me. I always liked that kind of stuff. But actually doing like releasing or leaking rough mixes of things, I don't know that I'm behind that. I don't think I like that.
And see, I'm exactly like you. I'm old school. I remember, you'd have to go in and check the dates on when records were coming out, and you would go absolutely batshit waiting for it. When it did hit, you were running home and, like you said, opening it up and looking at the cover art, reading all the liner notes while you're being blown away by the music. I think that was all part of the experience, and I think it led to the excitement. Now, again, like you, I thought it was cool to have a sneak peek inside, and I think that if a band maybe, did that without leaking any music, they could keep the build-up going, and show their excitement for the songs that they're recording, and then, lead off. I think that could build a little more excitement, because I agree. I get records months in advance, and I'll sit on them and do my reviews closer to the date coming out, because you don't want to ruin that build up and excitement. You're right. It's somebody doesn't like something, they're going to turn away, and if they're bored with it, they're going to turn away in a short amount of time.
Yeah, even shorter now than ever before. It's an ADD nation, and everybody's kind of, here 1 minute, gone the next. It's a disposable kind of thing these days. And so, yeah, I think there's ways of doing it. I think there's still creative ways of and I love one of the positive things about social media is that that's what that does. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it literally lets the fans be a part of a lot of this, and they feel like they're included. Man, talk about a way to win over a fan base. That's it right there, man. That's magical. And you make somebody feel like they're a part of your creative process, you got them. And that to me is awesome. I love that. And because I like being included in that. Why do you think I got into this? I'm not a virtuoso player. In fact, I'm a horrible guitar player, but I know just enough to be dangerous. I know just enough about music to be dangerous in a studio, because I'm still coming at it from a fan's perspective, mostly. I'm kind of, I'm not comparing myself to Rick Rubin. He's a little more astute at this kind of thing than I am, but I'm just saying I'm kind of like that in that respect, in that I'm coming at it more from a fan's perspective a lot of times than a musician or technical aspect. And I love being included in that process. That's why I do this. I love surrounding myself with these great players and great people. It gives me goosebumps just talking about it still 25 years later. I love it.
That's a cool analogy there. I'm coming from the same place. I heard the Who's "Can You See the Real Me," and I told Mom and Dad, I said, I need a bass right now. And
right.
I grew up listening to that stuff, and I'm like you. I can play a little. I can play with a band. I can keep going, but I'm in no means a virtuoso either. And ultimately, I'm a fan. And what led me down the road to picking up a camera and writing about the music, and that's what pushed me into this side of where I am. The reporting side of it, and it's where I need to be. It's where I feel I should be, and bringing people into the excitement. So it does take people like yourself and people like myself to complete the formula.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important. I think that there's a lot to be said for great recordings. I think you can take it overboard now with the software and some of the silliness that's going on, the auto tune and the time compression and expansion and some of the, elastic audio and some of the dumb shit that's yeah, the intention was good, but wow, you're always going to have the abusers and the people that just, oh my God, take it to the extreme of, making somebody talentless sound talented, and that to me is a really nasty little double-edged sword, and that's just going to happen. That's going to be there, and that's part of it. I think there's a lot of things that are getting overproduced. I think there's a lot of things that, because of some of the tools that are available, are getting the absolute magical, the word you use, I love it, alchemy. It's getting that just squished out of it. I hate that, but, that's part of it. That's what's going to come with these new advances in technology. So at least I'm glad that I have enough of an education and a discipline to know when to use something like that and to know when to tell somebody, just do it again because I know you can do this. I know you are capable of doing this, and that helps everyone in the end, I think. But that's again, my humble opinion.
And that's perfect because that was the direction I was going to lead you into. Was that kind of discussion about, the actual computer involvement, because I remember there was this great live band out here in New Mexico. I saw them, their energy, their sound, everything was great live. And I was fortunate that I was able to go in the studio for their debut record. And the drummer at one point messed up on a song, and the engineer said, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in post. And he says, in fact, I'm going to fix some other stuff. He says, you can relearn it later. And I thought to myself, well, he's playing the song the way it was written, and you're going to record it and rework it, so he has to relearn it. There's something wrong there.
It is a bit of putting the cart before the horse, isn't it?
Yep.
It's kind of sad, and that's what a lot of it turned into. And listen, hey, I'm guilty of that too, but I know when to implement that. I know when to say, you know what, just let me fix this. Because if we've got a lot more to do that day, if we need to really stay on schedule because I have to go home, I have to fly out or whatever, I'm not going to quibble over one measure of drums. I'm going to fix it. I'll fix it later, or I'll fix it sitting right there, right then. I'll edit it and make it feel right, and nobody will ever know that it ever happened. But if it's a question of this guy really can't drum, this band can't afford for me to call in a ringer, a studio musician to cover his end of things, and I'm having to edit every single measure of the drums and put them on a digital grid and suck the life out of this and spend all of our time on drums and no time on anything else, then that's when I have to speak up. That's when I have to go, okay, this is wrong. Something's wrong here. Because, by that time, if I'm in the studio with a band and their drummer can't drum, I should have known that way before I walked in the door. Instead of just going, yeah, let's go in the studio. No. I go check bands out before I go in the studio with them. If they can't do it, then I go, here's what you need to do. You need the woodshed. You're not ready for me just yet. The word no is a complete sentence. Not enough people use it these days. And it's okay. I'm not there to hurt anybody's feelings or stomp on anybody's toes. You hire me or you want to talk to me about this, I'm going to tell you the truth. And that's sometimes the truth hurts, and that's just the way that is. And, I've worked with bands before that I even helped them. I said, look, man, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make some tempo maps for you. You're going to practice to them for 6 months. I'll be back in 6 months. I ain't going anywhere. And I'll come back. I'll listen to you again, and we'll see where you're at. And then I come back, and it's like a world of difference. It's like the gates have opened, and they see the light, and it's like, okay, I get this now. I went to see a band last night. I didn't know what they were going to sound like. I went to their rehearsal place over in Arlington, Texas. I had no idea what these guys were going to sound like other than what the verbal description they gave of their music. And I go in there, and they're pretty damn good. I'd never heard of them before, and yeah, we have some mutual friends around here, but, you know, they practice. They practice every night, you know, and they're trying, you know, and that's what it takes. A lot of people go into the studio under the misconception of, well, it's Pro Tools, we don't need to practice. But that, I absolutely steer clear of that at all costs, because that is so detrimental, and it burns me out on my job. And then if I don't want to be there and my heart's not in it, you're going to get an album that sounds like I didn't want to be there and my heart wasn't in it.
That's right. And I'm so glad to hear that. You know, I know a lot of studios that they'll never send, and that, you know, engineers and you know, all that, they'll never go see the band live. They've never seen them live, so they never know that kind of vibe. And I think it shows in your work that you take the time out to do that. I know you probably haven't hit every band that you could, but the fact that you put that effort out to hear what they're all about definitely shows in your work.
I appreciate that. I try to cater to the band and not have the band cater to me. If I go see them at their rehearsal stall or a gig or whatever, and they're doing really good and they're throwing down, that's what I encourage in the studio. Hey, do it like you did it live. Just do it like that. I like your energy. You know, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Every fucking album that I've ever loved or just wanted to listen to was recorded like that, with some sort of live element involved. You know, might have gone back and overdubbed guitars and vocals and other stuff later, but that energy, that flow is still there. It's still an underlying current under all of that drives this whole thing, that moves you, makes you want to bop your head. That's what I love about that shit, man. In the last year alone, I've probably worked with 5 or 6 bands that we did not use a click. We did not use a grid. We did not use any of that stuff. And it just feels so much better. It's so much more organic. Yeah, you feel it speed up and slow down just a little, but not so much that you're like, oh, that's a train wreck. Everybody's listening to each other. That's what matters. You know, if I find a band that they're not listening to each other, oh my God, you hear it immediately. If they don't know each other's parts, you know it. It's like everybody's in it for themselves.
Right. Right. And that kind of organic flow, like you just mentioned, that lends warmth and dynamic to that record, the recording, which
totally
is a whole big part of what, you know, the records that you listen to. You know, as we're talking here, I'm sitting here looking through, you know, I have an extensive CD collection right now, and your name's on quite a few of them that I have that get regular play from me. So
wow.
I have to thank you for that.
I'm honored. Thank you. Thanks, man.
So, you know, this has been a great conversation, and,
awesome.
and it's gonna be the first of my search to bring the people, you know, bring people's attention to the fact that, like you said, that there's an alchemy that's needed. And I want to thank you so much. And right now, the floor is yours, going out to 170 countries. Tell the world what you want to tell them from yourself.
From me?
Yeah, whatever. Floor is yours, man.
Wear clean underwear so that if you get in an accident, you know, just like your mom told you, okay? No, I'm just being silly. That's another thing. In a recording sessions and working with artists, God, keep it light. Have fun. Music's supposed to be fun. I work around so many people that kept it serious, and it just kills the mood. And I hated that. I always hated that serious corporate attitude in the studio. So keep it fun. Keep it light. Joke around. Cut up. You know, other than that, you know, I'm working with this band out of Canada, and they are called A Rebel Few. You can reach them on arebelfew.com or arebelfew.ca if you're in Canada, and check them out. These guys are the real deal. We're just talking about not working with a click, feeling that organic flow, that chemistry, that alchemy. These guys are the real deal. I'm about to start mixing their album. They just finished recording down here in Texas with me, and they went back home. I'm about to start mixing, and I just wanted to pump them, give them a push, because they need it just like everybody else. And it's just good old rock and roll. It's good old rock and roll. No tricks, no silliness, just rock. Straight up rock and roll. Blue collar. So that's my push.
That's what keeps us going.
Yeah,
perfect, man. You know, we're going to keep plugging at this, and we're going to keep, like you said, it's not dead. There's certain aspects that are going to fall off, but
death is
my entire life.
Death of one thing means the life of another. This whole industry, this whole climate, it's all undergoing a massive change right now, and it always will. It's just a little quicker than we all wanted it to, you know. And as much as I hate record labels and stuff like that, they're going away. The need for them is going away, and so it's a big change. You know, we just got to deal with change a little quicker than we're used to. That's all it is.
That's it. And you know, where I was going is I'm 50 years old. My best friend my entire life, my constant friend, has been music throughout that 50 years. It's been there for me when I'm sad, when I'm happy, when, you know, I want any aspect, any emotion that I can go through. Music's been there. And iconic songs have led me through all the times in my life. So I'm not going to let it go without a fight, regardless of what people say.
Amen to that, brother. I'm with you. I listened to Far Beyond Driven the other day for the first time in probably about 15 years. I listened to that whole album front to back, uninterrupted. And it just blew my fucking mind. This many years later, how iconic that is, how much, first of all, how much music can move a human being, and second of all, how much, when you're clicking on all cylinders, how much you can convey that emotion to someone else through music, and just how badass that album was, man. It was a beating, you know, a brutal beating, and it's just a great reminder. So yeah, I'm with you, man. Music is always there. It's a great thing.
Great. And feel free, man. Feel free to throw that alchemy word around, man. That's the word of the day. Let's make it that.
Vocabulary word of the day.
That's it. Alchemy. Look it up, people. This is the Hellion from the Hellion Rocks. Sterling Winfield, producer extraordinaire, in my humble opinion. And we're out.
Thanks, man. Bye,
cool,
guys.
Man.